Okay. Hello, Mallory. It's good to see you after over a month away. Um,
hmm
yeah, I first of all, just I'm curious what's going on in your life. Like, how have things been since last we met?
Yes. So definitely um, don't recognize who I was and how I was this time last year. Um, it's not to say that things have been easy externally in my life, but the way that I um, go about an issue or conflict when it arises is night and day difference. Um, yeah. So some of the health issues have been lingering and but that's been my whole life, that wasn't new this year. And the way that I handle that is very different. And I used to get into like a rut and just down on myself for days on end. And now I can be like, okay, I'm not going to Google that. We're just not going to go there until, the doctor gives me a diagnosis or something like that. That's been one of the most just obvious changes. Um, yeah, amongst many more.
Uh, Thank you for that. I'm so curious. I want to know more about that, but I'm going to just go through my script of questions and then I'll get to it later. So, why did you choose coaching to begin with?
I think I realized that I wasn't capable of change without help from the community, like from my community or from someone. And you're not even in my community, so um, and that was super great for me to have someone who was detached and didn't have a bias and didn't know the people that um, I needed to, talk about or who are kind of um, affecting the way I was feeling. Um, Sorry, I'm not good when I'm on the spot. Can you cut this part out?
You're doing fine. You're doing
You
fine.
know what I'm saying as I'm saying it and trying to make it sound good. But I
You're
think
fine.
if you
You're
didn't tell me
fine.
to record it, I would do better.
This is not a performance. This is just a conversation we're having. Like it's a candid conversation, non-scripted. You don't have to plug me. I just want you to just talk like we normally talk, right? It's fine.
Yeah. So, I think the main reason I sought help is I had from a coach specifically is I had gone to many therapists and counselors who only made me more sad. And it was like my problems were just highlighted and I didn't want to just talk about my problems. I wanted to know how to not think about my problems all the time because I knew that that was making me in more of a rut and more mentally and physically ill. And yeah, so I think I told you that I was watching Netflix one evening, and that's when the Tony Robbins commercial came on when I finished a different documentary, and I was like, "Oh, this looks interesting," but like I don't want someone on his level because he didn't seem nice. And then it was that same night that I just Googled some things, found your name, like so random, and then just after that initial conversation, breaking down and realizing, okay, I have a lot more to process than I
Mhm.
realized. And just in that first hour, you allowed me to see what my future would probably look like if I didn't take steps towards changing and take the time and the investment financially to um, like to set aside to allow that area of my life to grow. That being my self worth, my identity, and my confidence and in my like my patience with myself and just knowing that I can slow down.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that first conversation really well. And I mean, I didn't know you from Adam, and it ends up that you just live right down the street, which is strange. And we do know some of the same people, which is even stranger. But
Mhm.
we're not, I've never met you before. Um, and what a really powerful session that was, that just first introductory meeting, and how open and really ready you were to do the work. It was pretty clear to me. Um, so I think you may have answered some of this, but what really did you hope to achieve?
I I hoped to achieve confidence that I could do the things in life that I wanted to do.
Mhm.
I think I was just so nervous and overwhelmed by anxiety and fear that I just kind of paralyzed myself, and I needed someone to quite literally be my coach and say, "No, you can do this. You are capable." And just repeat that like over and over and over again. And yeah. So that's absolutely what happened. Like I remember the very first time you asked me what my life would look like 30 years from now if nothing were to change.
Mhm.
And I was so confident that I would probably stay in this house, stay in this city, maybe stay at the same job. And now I've changed jobs. I'm pursuing the things in life that get me excited, that scared me at the time.
Yeah.
Um, I'm moving, hence all the stuff over here. And it's, it's, I mean, yeah, everything changed in the past year. And I don't think anything would have changed. Like, I think it started with, and Andrew will say that my husband will say the same thing. Um, he saw so much growth in me that it intimidated him. And he'll tell me that today. Like, yeah, he didn't, I guess all throughout our dating relationship and marriage, he'd always been one step ahead of me
Mhm.
spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. And when those roles kind of switched, I think it allowed him to kind of wake up and have more humility.
Yeah.
And so I think it was really good for him too, for sure.
Yeah. Woo! It's the best endorsement ever. Um,
Mhm.
and well, first of all, I'm just happy for you. And there's no magic sauce in me. I mean, it was a collaborative effort between me, God, and you, obviously. And you coming in, that's why I said in that very first session, you were really ready. Like the tears were flowing. You were ready for some new kind of life. You were ready to let go of that old way of existing and embrace a new life. And you did the work. So you reap the rewards, which is awesome. Uh,
And I'm still doing the work. Like I'll say one of you're gonna probably like this. One of the things that I'm realizing is I need to release my emotions more frequently than most
mhm,
people.
mhm.
And that's okay. And I think I used to think so I prior to the change that took place, I would um let things build up. But now I literally take time out of my week to just cry like every week because I'm
Awesome.
like that's what Mallory needs, and I'm more aware of that now. And so yeah, during my um quiet time or meditation or whatever, I cry, and that's currently like at least once a week.
Yeah.
And I just allow myself to cry for a while so I can move on. I mean,
Yeah.
not move on, but at least get on with my day and not feel like um, I'm carrying a lot of things that I shouldn't carry.
Totally. We had those early conversations where it was like you were trying to repress, deny, like push down all your feelings. If only it was like you wanted to be like your husband. You wanted to be your husband and not have those things and just be this logical, disciplined. And I'm like, that's not you. And we did get in a good habit of crying every week anyway. And so it makes sense that you would just continue on the crying on your own, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Um,
And it's not always sad tears.
yeah,
Sometimes it's just um it's grateful tears.
of course.
I told someone it was like I was crying in tongues, like talking to God through tears because I didn't know how else to communicate,
Mhm.
which is something that I've
Yeah,
never, you know,
yeah.
thought was a thing. So
Well, that's very deep. I mean, that's that like spiritual, like you had this like intellectual understanding of God, but that's like this spiritual connection to God. And that's just, this is not, this is going to maybe sound misogynistic on the outside, but I really do think that that's part of the gift of the feminine is that I think
mhm.
women are, it's easier for them to connect in that way than it is for men tend to be up in your head. And you were just kept trying to be that way and deny this other part of you that's really a gift. Um, yeah, that's awesome. So, were there any fears that you had to overcome to commit to doing this work? I mean, it's 6 months, it's money, time.
Yeah, the financial piece was um I guess just how do I want to put it? Um it was hard for me to not feel like selfish in that because my husband wasn't spending that much on his growth, right? And I was. But I would be happy for him too, and we've talked about that even since then. Um but I mean, very quickly we both knew it was a good investment, and it helped the way you have it set up that the first month is almost like a trial.
Yeah.
And so from then on, it was never like the investment side was never painful.
Mhm.
Um, but prior to that, we'd only go through insurance to find a counselor. And I think that's why I never found one that helped me or like I connected with. That sounds kind of bad, maybe, but yeah, it was whoever my insurance would connect me to or a doctor. And it's like they don't really know me. And so I wasn't really choosing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So
Yeah, I've been there before.
mhm.
Yeah, and I know that I'm not the right person for everybody either. I mean, I think a lot of people would be really turned off by me, but there are certain people. That's why I have that first meeting to see if I'm a good fit for you and you're a good fit for me. It has to work both ways. Because that's the last thing I would want to do is be in a relationship with you for 6 months. And every time I see your name on the calendar, be like, oh no, got to do another session with Mallory. Like, and I wouldn't want anybody to do that with me. So, yeah. Uh, so when did you realize that you were really changing? What happened?
um, this one's so hard because I noticed small changes in my thinking ever since our first meeting, and I was using what you would say to me with my friends after just one meeting. And so I think it was a slow but gradual change that started at the very beginning. Um, but there was like more drastic milestones that happen throughout, such as being able to fly and not um, like have a panic attack and or even get excited to go on a plane, which
Nice.
hasn't that used to be me like a long time ago. Um, and so yeah, um, I think that's my answer is it was like pretty immediate. There wasn't like one drastic. moment in which I felt like there was change. It was just like throughout the whole process.
Hmm. What about your husband? When did your husband be like, you're different? Like, did he say or do something like, there's something, what's going on? Like,
Yeah. Um, Probably month 3, I'd say, is whenever I think the way that I spoke, probably internally and externally, and
hmm
my actions started to change. So, yeah, probably somewhere along month 3, month 4.
hmm can you remember specifically what happened? I'm just curious.
Yeah. There was lots of things for sure, and trying to decide which one to share. I think some of the ways in which my husband shoulds on himself. He should do this. He shouldn't do that. Um, and yeah. So I think we were on a walk one day, and I was just like, you don't have to do these things. You can quit your job if you need to. You can do whatever you feel like you need to do, especially if it's going to help you love other people better and love yourself more. And especially when it comes to the type of work that he needs to do.
Hmm
Um, Him and I both struggled with that because I studied business, he studied finance, and we've always just kind of been in that niche. Um, and he loves business, but he doesn't love sitting at a computer for 9+ hours every day. And he can use finance in a way that doesn't involve that. So since our session started up until now, we've purchased, flipped, and sold our second home, our second flip, and we just love it. Like me especially, like I love real estate, and um, I told him recently, I sensed that he was shitting on me, that I should focus my time here instead of here. And I need that to a certain extent because I'm very free spirited and my mind is that way too. I forget things. And I was like, I said, you're utilizing me for the things, like utilize me for what I'm good at. Like I'm good at a lot of things. And I like laundry listed them.
hmm
And I was like, not all girls are good at that. And I don't think I ever would have been able to respond that way. And I want to do that for him too. I'm like, you're good at this. Not all guys are good at that.
Right,
Like, there's a guy that is made for the cubicle
right.
and likes that. And I know because I've worked with those types. And that's not him. So we're still in the midst of how I think that will change us and change our future. Um, but it's definitely, for me, it's changed drastically already, and I think it's in process for him too. So does that help answer?
Wow, that's a cool story. I'm glad I asked that question. Yeah, it's like you had a whole coaching session with your husband.
Yeah.
You guys got a 2 for 1. You pay for one coaching
I
with me and then you coach
included,
him.
I included that I was feisty. Like we've had some things come up with the flip, and he's passed it on to me because I know how to talk to people when something needs to get done better than I can a lot of things on a computer.
Mhm.
I know how to act like act like I know what I'm talking about. And I was working with all men, and sometimes they just need a little kick in the butt, and I know how to do it. And so I told him that I was like, delegate these things to me. Like I gave him the analogy of like I gave him like $1,000 gift cards. Like someone gave him $1,000 gift card, and he's like using the gift card as I gave I gave the analogy of a plunger. I was like, it's like you're trying to plunge a toilet with a gift card. And someone was like, maybe a better example would be just setting it on the counter and not utilizing it at all. I was like, no, he was trying to use me. He was trying to utilize it, but he was utilizing it for something that it's not made to be.
Right.
You need an actual plunger to plunge a toilet. You can't use, I was like, you can utilize a credit card. You can also spend it because it's worth a
Yeah.
thousand, it's worth a lot of money. So use it for what it's good for. And I went on with the analogy. I was like, it can multiply. You can buy something with that $1,000 that is, and I was like, do that with me.
Right. Yeah.
and because whenever you use someone in a way that makes them feel like they're being utilized, they keep on, it's like a trajectory, and they keep on feeling like they can do something. And anyways, that was that was our conversation.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic. Sometimes we talk about stuff and it's very sort of esoteric, but that's very practical. Everybody understands that. It's a great analogy. And I just think you were doing that to yourself when we met. You were treating yourself. You were this $1,000 gift card, and you kept being like, "I wish this was a better plunger." And I'm like, "No, stop that."
I don't know why plunger is what came to my mind, but yeah,
So that can at least the next question, and it's a big question, but what did you learn? What are a couple of things that you learned about yourself in this process?
um, I don't know if this is what I learned about myself, but what I learned to love about myself to start with is God made me talkative, and I can use it for his glory, and God wants to use it for, and he made me feisty, and he made me a little scattered, but in the midst of that scatteredness, I see people that, like, I'm able to drop what I'm doing for something better.
Mhm.
And people who are uber focused don't always see those little things.
Right.
And um yeah, and I think I just relearned those things. I think maybe as a kid I wasn't afraid to be that way, and that was beautiful. And then over time people tell you, oh, you shouldn't be this talkative, or I get in trouble in the classroom because I'm talking. But that's a gift. Like, some people don't know how to communicate well or at all. And yeah, I think I also learned a lot of my tendencies. Like, when Mallory is going through this, she will this. Therefore, this is what you can do in the midst of that to keep me from like spiraling. And um I'm catching myself with that a lot earlier. Not to say that part is perfect yet, but yeah, it's I've also learned that I would love to be a coach one day. If
Yeah. Well, you're doing it already. You're doing it with your husband and your friends.
I yeah, I have really enjoyed spurring people on um as a result of the change that I've experienced. And um okay, can I give one story about
Sure,
that?
go for it.
On a lot of stories today. I had a girlfriend this weekend tell me that basically she struggled with pride, or she was saying that she was too confident. And I was like, okay, sure, like, we don't want to be too prideful, but at the same time, like, that is a gift that most women don't have, especially in this day and age. Like, she is confident in who God made her, any task that is put in front of her. And it's like the very gift that God gave you, you're the, I don't know if it's ourselves or the enemy wants to call bad. And I was like, yeah, any gift maybe we can turn into selfishness, but at the same time, with her, I'm just like, it's so obvious that she's showing other women that they can do the same, that they can just be confident, and they can she's fearless. I mean, she's in sales.
Yeah.
She she knows what she's doing and she knows what she wants, and she has very few moments of anxiety, unlike any other girl I've met my age. And that is beautiful. That is so obvious that that's a gift that God gave her. And she's like ashamed because um society tells her it's just pride and selfishness. And I'm like, no, it's not all it is. So
That's awesome. First of all, it's awesome that you're able to do that for her. It's the exact same thing I was doing for you because you were sort of shaming yourself for your good qualities. And there's always there's a dark and a light side to everything, right? I mean, we just went over it. Like every quality has a dark and a light side. You know,
mhm,
um, confidence and pride are the same thing, just used in the wrong way or the right way.
yeah.
Um, yeah, for sure. That's that's so cool. Um, so, what are some of the tools or techniques that had an impact on you?
Um, as much as it made me feel uncomfortable, the setting up space for God to communicate
Mhm.
and communicate directly without me needing to go to something else or someone else. Um, yeah, that's been huge. I, I, I trying to figure out how to word this. In the past, I believe I heard clearly from the Holy Spirit, and then I was like, oh no, that's just my own thought.
Mhm.
And now I feel like I can decipher, no, this is God communicating with me, and He's not confusing. And I don't need to be like, oh wait, is it this or is it that? Like, um, so that you really taught me how to do through some of the visualization exercises and just learning to meditate and still learning how to meditate and slow down. Um, but I desire to do that every day now, whereas before it was like a task that I didn't want to do. But now, um, yeah, now I really just desire it. My
I,
habits have changed as a result.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was so excited to hear the word I desire it versus I need to, I want to, I have to, I should, like all of that. Like I desire, it's your choice. You're like, I mean, meditation was not that not that thing on the top of your list. You're like, I know I'm supposed to, I know I need to, but now it's in this place of like that desiring that connection. That's
Mhm.
beautiful.
Yeah. And I think too, I at the beginning, I think I told myself it had to look the way it does for Coach David.
That's right.
And now, if I have a busy day and I didn't make time in the morning, I do whatever I can to make time for it throughout the day. So I got a new pair of over-the-ear headphones. So intentionally, so I can block out everything.
Right.
So if I'm feeling really ADHD, for lack of better term, and I like can't sit still, I'll just walk around the house while I'm listening to something that will remind me of truth, or listening to music that will calm me. Or I started listening to like old Catholic choirs. I feel like I would have never started that except for Coach David. So those are just a lot of things that have like practically really helped me day to day.
Yeah. I remember when I had my first child who would scream unless I walked with her strapped to me. And it like a really, she woke up at like 5 a.m. and would just scream. And, uh, her mom was taking care of her in the night. And so it was my job to like walk with her strapped to me. And I was talking to like this spiritual guy I knew. I was like, how do you meditate? Like, I can't do anything. This baby's just walking and screaming, and she would only sleep whenever I was walking. If I stopped, she would wake up. Um, and he was like, why don't you just talk to God and connect on your walk? And I'm like, ah, that's not the right way, right? And I'd fallen in love with the tool instead of the tool being a method for. And God knows my heart. I still know that for me, that quiet one-on-one time in the morning on my bench in my little space is so super special to me. And I wouldn't change that for the world. But life happens, you know, things happen, and we're all different people. Uh, and the way we connect with God is different. And now you're able to listen and discern what that is. You don't have to do somebody else's method. You can develop your own connection and relationship that's specifically designed for you, which I think is beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, did you ever think about quitting or giving up?
No, no, there was some days that I didn't want to wake up at 6 a.m. That was kind of a struggle, but no, there
Awesome.
wasn't.
Good. Um, how has your mental health improved?
Um, I would say it's night and day difference. It was interesting too going through this during COVID,
Mhm.
um, because there was a lot of stressors this year for everyone, and there still are. Um, but yeah, I think I've noticed with my friends, a lot of them will process how they're feeling to me, and not to say that it's illegitimate or I don't try to have empathy for them, but I'm like, that, like, what an exhausting way to live or to think about this. And I'm like, oh my word, I was there fully like 10 months ago. And just the way that they process is so sad. I think I don't know how else to put it. Um, I'm just like, oh, that's the first thing that comes to your mind. And I think by and large, especially when it comes to my health issues or me going down the what ifs, like what if, I mean, I could still lose someone from COVID. So that's been something that's a what if that I think about. Um, I go back to, and I can hear your voice. Well, today you're alive. And so that's kind of my thought. It's like, well, what if this thing kills me? Is usually what it comes down to with most of my fears. What if I move overseas and I die? Or what if I die during childbirth? Or what if I die from these infections that I'm fighting? And it's like, well, today I'm alive. So let's just move on. Not to say that I can move on, but if I move on mentally more quickly, I've noticed that that's really important because the longer I ponder on that thought,
Yeah.
the more real it becomes. And not to say that it's easy every day, but so far that's been huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, that's a Enneagram 6, you know, has that component of like, oh, the worst case scenario thinking. It can be a gift too. Like you can, you know, see all the dark things that could possibly happen that some people can't see. So at times it's a gift, and other times it becomes a hindrance. And so just being like, well, we'll see, right?
yeah.
I'm fine today, right? And that's all we all have. What about, have you already talked some about your relationships? How have your relationships changed?
um, I would say they've also changed drastically. I think I got to a point, and this is also when I realized I needed help, where I was so, I think, ashamed of like how I was. Like I was very aware of everything that was wrong with me. And so I would not put myself around friends for long periods of time because I didn't want to upset them. Or, and part of that too is I had been hurt in past relationships. And so, so with I'll do friends and then family maybe. So with friendships, I think I just realized, my friends love me and they're gracious with me if they're my real friend. And no human being is perfect. And so, and likewise, whenever I have a friend who um, hurts me, my first reaction, for the most part, is grace and is gentleness. And the more so I'm that way with myself, the more so I'm that way with my friends. Um, and I think too, I'm aware that like I'm not gonna make everyone happy, no matter what I do, and that's okay. And I'm still learning. That's still a process for me daily. But a lot of my friends get caught up in people pleasing, and that's just exhausting. And um, I would say I have a lot more boundaries when it comes to that. I can be like, nope, I'm not going to do that. Thanks, anyways, and not feel like, oh no, are they still going to like me after this? Um, but on the flip side of that, I'm more excited to serve and be a good friend. And I know that I can only do that whenever I take time to take care of myself first. Um, and I would say that's the same for my family. My parents and I have a lot of different ideas on a lot of things, and my first reaction for most of my adult life is to just get mad and I guess cut them off until they change instead of coming from um and it's ironic too because like what would make me the most frustrated is whenever I felt like they weren't gracious towards me or towards other people and legalistic, and then I would do that to them and say, well, you're not worthy of my grace now because you're not showing the grace to other people. And so I think the Lord's still teaching me a lot about that. And I actually went on my first like mother-daughter trip since our coaching, and I don't think I would have initiated that had it not been for the coaching. But just for my mom to be told like she's done a good job means the world to her. And I think too, like for anyone, and I was describing this to like a group of my friends when I was telling them about our coaching, like I said with Coach David, he never really emphasized what I needed to change. He always emphasized what I was capable of, and that's what allowed me to change. And so if our whole, society did that, like no, but and just highlighted what they're good at, I think they would become more like the person we want them to become, or not we want them to become, but they want themselves to become too. And so like with my mom, just like reinforcing those things that she's so good at gets gets her so excited and allows growth to happen instead of being like all the time just kind of like, well, mom, you're not very good at this. And that's there's a time and place for that, sure. But like I think that I was to a point where I would only tell her what she needed to work on. And that's exhausting. And for her and for me. And so yeah. Anyways, I'm going on another mother-daughter trip tomorrow. I'm gonna meet her in St. Louis just for 2 days. And so and with that too, before as I was saying that, I realized that I've been praying leading up to being with my mom so that I can make sure that I'm in the spirit, not just in my flesh, and that I can serve her well. And so I've never done, never had a practice of that. But now it's to the point where almost before I meet with any friend and go to any event, I'm I'm praying and I'm in prayer leading up to it. Um, and that's been a huge change for all my relationships for sure.
Wow. Yeah. Even those characteristics in people we find are challenging, there's always a light side to it. I mean,
Hmm.
being legalistic, the nice side of that is you have standards. Like you have opinions that you care deeply about, right? That's the good side of that. So even those things that we find challenging in people is something beautiful if they use it in the right way. Um,
Yeah.
I love how, I mean, just how much you've changed. It's so cool. I've been looking forward to this meeting for a long time, so it's fun catching up with you and hearing all the good stuff. Um, so I know you mentioned at the very end you had left your job, um, and I know even that was a challenge. So um, yeah, my question was, how has your career changed? Um, I know it obviously has, and you're in this sort of transitional period. Is there anything you'd like to say about that?
So I think that was one of the biggest um, events that have taken place since since the end of my coaching, that like just to kind of test what I've learned.
Hmm.
Um, it was very hard for me in that to not care about what everyone thought about me quitting.
Hmm.
Um, Especially because looking back, I did not handle some things well. The last, I'd say like 6 months. And so there was a season where I shamed myself for that. And like, oh, I wish I would have done this better. I wish I would have worked harder. I wish I would have, given it my all until the end. Well, it is what it is. It's done. I can't change it, but I can change what I'm doing now. And so I think I definitely learned to just give myself grace for that. Whereas, had I quit the year prior and it ended that way, I think I would have just dwelt on it for months on end, if not longer, and like carried that. And I've just been able to give it to the Lord and say, you know what? This is just the reminder that I am human and I am sinful and I need a savior. And this is what the reminder looked like for me. And so yeah, if it was truly sin, I can repent of that, but then there's freedom and I can move on.
Yeah.
One thing that you'll find interesting is my very last day, there was a woman there who I think I've talked to you about this person before, but she was very mean to me my last day, and she kind of made me feel like I was a criminal. She like took my fob from me that got me into our banking website, and it was very dramatic, so much so that the other coworkers noticed. And she was just taking out a lot on me. And I was like, I don't know what is going on in her life, but it must be bad. That was like my first reaction, or like first mental thought. So yeah, she actually told me that she wanted to walk me out, and she's not my boss. And my boss was very gracious throughout the whole process. He asked if he could be on Andrew and I's newsletter because we have one now. Um, and so I think in that, honestly, what I think God was telling me is if you don't continue to grow and change, you might end up more like her one day. And if you're ever in a leadership position, this could be how you come across.
Yeah.
But if you can learn to trust other people with me, because that's what my boss did. He was aware, I'm sure, of the things I could have grown at and changed at, but he trusted the Lord with me.
Hmm.
And it was very evident in the way he talked to me and treated me throughout that transition. Um, so yeah, it was very hard because it was the end of 4 years. In the majority of that, I worked my butt off and
Hmm.
I did all the tedious tasks that I felt like were stupid, right? And so I'm like, and so then it comes back to like, I felt like in that place, it was easy for me to I was half tempted to go back to like a works-based mentality of like, if I do this, then I get this, because that's how she treated me. Only if I did what she wanted me to do to a T did she treat me kindly. And then I vented to a couple of people that don't know her and will never meet her, like my mom and my mentor, and they helped me to see from her perspective and kind of have grace for her. And one of them was like, she could even be bipolar, like honestly, because she was very nice to me like a few minutes earlier. And anyway, the whole thing was so weird. I've never experienced anything like that. And I've had a lot of job transitions in my 27 years. I mean, at least a dozen.
Hmm.
And so anyways, all I have to say, it was really a neat time for me to just like practice what I had just learned. And she had no control over my identity. Um, could I have loved her and served her better or served in my workplace better? Absolutely, I could have for sure. But does that change like my worth and the way I should physically feel? No.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was that.
Wow, that's a biggie because I know before there was a lot of concern about what other people thought about you, and to have somebody confront you and be like that, and you also have some of that kind of guilt or whatever about your past performance. I mean, all that could have really have snowballed into something where you just took on all of that shame or weird energy she had and owned it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. Um, I want to respect your time. And I know your physical health has been an ongoing thing. Is there anything, any kind of improvements that happen in that area? Just your overall physical health.
Um, during my coaching, absolutely. When I got hit with COVID, I think I might have told you this. I got put on a medicine that made a different issue that I had amplify.
Mm.
So while it helped with COVID, it made this other thing really a lot worse.
Hmm.
And there was a medicine that did that. It wasn't, and my doctor confirmed that. So I'm not, just making it up. But so that's been hard. That's what I'm dealing with now. I feel like I kind of started over from
Mm.
where I was back in May, probably. Um, but I'm not staying in a state mentally of like, oh, I'm sick again. I'm always going to be sick, how I used to. It's kind of like, well, this is something that is reminding me that I'm human and, allowing me to detach my body from my spirit, and circumstances are neutral.
Yeah.
And so that's by and large, that's been the way I think about it. There's definitely days when I just have to cry and be like, why am I still struggling with this? Um, Today was one of those days. I cried this morning. I cried to Andrew and just said, I've been trying to tough it out, and today I just need to cry about it because
Mm.
it's sad. And I don't enjoy being sick. It doesn't go well with my personality. That's what I always say.
Yeah.
Um, but the one thing that I've said to other people who ask and to myself, and I firmly believe it, is this is just temporary. Um, I do believe I'm going to physically get better. And so I don't know if I would have said the same a while back. Like if a really major illness came, I don't know if I would have that much confidence to be like, yeah, I'm absolutely getting better. I'm getting better every day. It just takes time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
With all of my being, I know that you will continue to heal. I know that that's part of your journey, and it does take time. And I don't know what all those things that will fall in line the way they're supposed to, but I know it will happen.
Mhm.
Um, so I know it's tough to put like a price tag on something like this, and but also know that cost and value are a big concern for people. I'm just thinking about somebody that may be watching this, thinking about coaching and thinking about like, okay, how much is this really worth? This 6 months coaching experience, weekly meeting. Um, so you've already paid me. I'm not paying you now. I'm not asking for you to toot my horn or anything. I'm just asking if you were to put a price tag on the value that you received, what would it be? Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. I wonder if the internet person's here. Okay. Um,
Mhm. Yeah,
Go ahead.
I okay. I I was almost gonna say that I'm not gonna put a price like it's invaluable. I can't put a price tag on it.
Mhm.
And I do believe that, but also I worked in finance for the past 4 years, so I do care about the actual cost. And so I would put it this way. Like if a friend asked me that today, I would say it this way. Um, it would have cost me so much more financially for sure, but also mentally and physically, which those things will cost you like literal money too, had I not gotten help when I did from you in particular. Like I would say by and large, every other counselor I've ever gone to besides one was a waste of money. And so I just think for someone to think that they can change on their own and just avoid the cost is going to end up costing them. They just don't realize it. And so that is something that I've changed my mindset on the past year, just spending money on things that I know will improve my health so I can take care of other people. Um, you were the first of that. And then after that, I was like, okay, I have other things that I've been putting off that are only going to cost me more.
That's
It's like, I guess a good analogy would be like someone can try to not spend a lot of money on healthy food today and just buy cheap stuff, but over time that's going to cost them money because they're going to end up needing medication or surgery. It's going to make them sick. So this upfront is absolutely saving me money and a lot of unnecessary like heartache and just inner turmoil. And yeah, for someone to say no just for the cost sake to me breaks my heart honestly because they don't know what they're missing out on.
yeah,
Um I feel like anyone can give it 1 month because even just comparatively, other coaches and counselors do charge even more than you for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
And so, yeah, that would be my answer to that.
yeah. Well, I've never done this. I mean, it's not for the money. The money allows me to do this, but it's not for the money. And um, I, I realize that the money is is a necessary obstacle for people to get in their head that this is really what I want, right?
Mhm.
It's this first sort of barrier in the hero's journey, It's like, do
Mhm.
you really want this or not? Are you just saying it or not? And I try to make it accessible, but not too easy. If it's too easy, then you don't value it or do the work. And so it's got to cost you something to go on the journey. Um, and of course, I'm grateful. I love money. I love getting money. Uh, that's not the point. But yeah, and I think how young you are. Holy camole! You're talking about changing the trajectory of your life for like the next 60 years of your
Mhm.
life. You get to enjoy a different perception, a different reality. Um, and I love that it's translated into other things that you're investing in yourself. I think I see it as symptomatic of self-love, like not in the negative pride way, but just like my heart for myself is close to God's heart for myself, right?
Mhm.
Treating
Mhm.
myself with the same kind of compassion and care that God has for me.
Mhm.
And you're doing that for yourself. And that's
Well,
awesome.
and just practically, like I read an article recently that just showed like people who live within their passions and what they're good at naturally are going to make more money because they don't get burnt out and they don't stay in this career that doesn't suit them well. And so we've already started to see fruits of that in our own household. Um, not to say that it always turns out that way for sure, but sorry, I thought my husband was coming in here. I thought he was going to chime in and say something. I want to be surprised if he did. Um, but it, you know, starting something that you're passionate about, whether that be a business or coaching or um, different types of investing, yeah, there's some risk that comes with that. But I don't think I would have taken those risks or known those things prior to coaching. So I think in
Mm-hmm.
its own way, it will pay off even just through my career and me working in a place where I can actually excel and succeed and not just staying in this rut, you know.
Totally.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, your situation is a little bit different, but so many of my clients get huge raises, like double. They end up making twice as much money as they were before. And we didn't talk about money. But it's part of it. It's just their self worth changes, and so
mhm,
the money comes to them, and they're just happier.
mhm.
People like to work with happy people, people that are passionate. People like to support passionate people. Um, and I see that in
Well,
you.
and on my Instagram, I have seen that.
Yeah,
On
see?
that side, yeah, I'm getting raises and random brands reaching out to me and wanting to work
Totally.
with me. So yeah, in the area that I'm better suited for, I have seen that
Yeah.
already. Yeah.
Well, it took you 6 months to let go of the old one. So, so do you want to tell the world where to find you on in Instagram? Is that something that you're interested in? Can somebody
Oh,
connecting the two
sure.
of these? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Tell them.
Yeah, it's at Mally Lately. So it's Mally lately.
Awesome.
It'll say that.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time for this. It's been a huge pleasure for me catching up with you and kind of reviewing this journey. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's awesome.